John Spiller is a teacher. He is a former mayor. He is president of the New Jersey Education Association and also a candidate for governor on the Democratic side in the upcoming June primary. And we're so happy to have him in studio for our conversation with the candidates. It's nice to see you. Thank you.
You as well. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, you do so much. You have a lot of titles as it is. Can you tell me why you decided to throw your hat in the ring for governor in the state of New Jersey?
Yeah, I look at this race right now and I truly believe that this is our chance. This is our chance to do something different. This is our chance to have somebody who's going to center our needs in every single decision that I make. I say that from the perspective I think all of us have seen for so long. We get out there, we elect folks, and we hope they do the right thing. But when they're making these decisions, they're in rooms where they're influenced by people in positions of power, often those who are very wealthy. We're seeing it at the national level right now in a big way, but it happens in Jersey as well. And I think folks are frustrated by that. We're tired of it. And understanding that this is the chance to say, hey, let's do something about it. Let's elect somebody who's got a lived experience more similar to our own and who's going to fight for us every day on the things that we need.
What are your top 3 issues that you're out there talking about on the campaign trail?
Yeah, it's about affordability. We've got to make New Jersey more affordable. I say that as somebody, I'm an immigrant to this country, came here as a young boy with my parents, and it was always that promise, right? You work hard, there's going to be opportunities, there's obstacles for sure, but if you work hard, you can do well. That's only gotten harder and harder and harder. I see it as an educator when I talk to the parents of the students that I teach. They talk about their frustrations. I see it in communities up and down the state as I travel, and folks just saying, we can't afford this. We have to make these tough choices. I can't afford that. And it's really a challenge. It's really frustrating when we know that as a country, we've got a lot of resources, but it's also frustrating when you see billionaires, just trying to take even more away from us. So for me right now, it's making sure we're focusing on the big drivers. It's housing costs, right? We've got to make sure we've got quality housing that's affordable in every single one of our communities. Proud of what we've done in Montclair, passing the first ever rent control law as mayor. Really proud there, but it's making sure more houses are available to folks to buy. I say that as somebody who took a couple of years to find my first home, multifamily home in Montclair. Those options aren't available anymore. You've got corporations, LLCs gobbling those up. I want to create a period where folks like you and me, regular folks, have the chance to buy those first or not get driven up on our mortgage costs. Make sure we get houses back on the market that have been foreclosed on, abandoned. Get that first-time home buying opportunity, an option to be there, but also get the rental units that we need that are affordable. We see often now communities are left on their own to say, you go build your requirement under the law, and they go to a developer. The developer says, I'll do it for you. I'll build 400 high-end luxury units, and I'll give you the 10 affordable. And communities are in uproar. That's not what we need. I'd go in as a partner, as governor, to say, we're going to help you with these funds, but we're then going to build something much more in line with the community. We're going to build 50 units. We're going to build 20 that are affordable, 20 that are workforce housing. There's plenty of people that don't qualify for affordable, but couldn't live in the town and afford it. And 10 senior housing, right? Just so we've got what we need, much more of it, but also not the big developments that folks don't want to see. So we've got to address housing. We've got to address healthcare costs. They keep rising. I've done something about that, helped design healthcare plans that have saved billions of dollars.
And that's your role at the New Jersey Education Association.
Exactly.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so in my role there, seeing the double digit, 20%, 15% healthcare cost increases year over year over year, we went to the state and said, hey, let us help work and design plans. We can figure it out to provide quality plans, but also get those savings that we're all looking for. And we did it, right? Took us a year to do. We figured it all out. We've done it. And put those plans into effect and are saving billions of dollars. And we need to do more. It's going and saying, hey, Horizon and the other insurance companies, you can't just say, here's your bill increase, but when we ask you why, you say, we can't tell you because it's agreements we have between us and the doctor, us and the hospital. Well, we're paying it. You got to tell us why so we can try to keep those costs down, right? So I've done it. We've got to address the healthcare costs as well for so many folks. We've got to address the cost of quality early education and childcare, right? So yes, we got to do the child tax credits for folks maybe putting something away for college, but also for folks with young families who are starting out. You can't have that $19,000 average cost for folks to be able to have their kids cared for.
It is outrageous, the cost of daycare, childcare before they get to pre-K.
And let me just say, like even in Montclair, perfect example, that's before you go to the Y and get early care and aftercare, which is another $10,000, right? So those costs are just unaffordable for so many families. If you can even get it, because there's a wait list for so many folks.
There are wait lists, there are, yes.
There's long lists and you're on it and you hope you can get through. You better reply right away because somebody else is going to take that spot. We've got to get more folks into it, right? So you got to get rid of the red tape to allow folks to get in and doing the work, and that's going to create more opportunity. But you have to change how you compensate these entities, because right now it's based on attendance, and every day I keep my little one home, they don't get paid, that's unacceptable, right? Because no business, no entity can operate that way. We've got to move to enrollment, based on enrollment. So we can do changes there. That's an important piece of it as well. We've got to continue to invest in the environment. And I say that in the context of energy as well, because we've all gotten those letters from our energy providers saying your bill's going up 20% now,
right.
And it's going up more again later. And in conversations, the whole grid in our area, right, does not have the power that it needs. And it's because at the federal level, so many of these projects that were going to come online providing more energy to our grid are being canceled, right? And with that, they're all raising their rates. So it's an important investment in the environment, right? Because we want more energy, we want green energy. But it's also an investment in our savings because we want more energy writ large so we can get our costs down. So it's investing in ways where they're pulling back at the federal level. We're saying we're going to make sure we continue to invest. We maybe have to be nimble. Maybe it's more solar than wind right now with some of the barriers that have been put up. Maybe it's investment in battery technology so we can store and utilize later. But it's making sure we're not running away from that because there's a cost to doing nothing. Not only a cost on our bills, but I can tell you as mayor, seeing those floods happening every other year instead of every 100 years, pumping out basements with our fire departments, watching folks try to get back on their feet, but then not be able to afford the insurance costs because they're jacking up rates if they can even get it. All of these things are tied together. So it's about making sure things are affordable. But I'll also just say this though, because I'm not blind to this, right? All of this is in the context of what's happening at the national level. Right, all of it is, and I'll say, when I look at what he's doing, and I think he's being mean, as
Talking
well.
about the president.
Not just, the president of the States, being mean. You're the most powerful person in the world. I look at it from the lens of just when I talk about being governor and making sure I'm standing up and protecting every single resident. It's personal. I think back to when we did come to this country, and I think back to my brother and I. And again, we knew what we had to do, and we knew we had to work, but not for one moment did we ever have to pause and think the President of the United States was going to send armed agents into our classrooms, pull us out of our seats, and say we're never going to see our parents again. Like there's a level of just meanness that's out there right now. It's an intention to make people fearful and to be scared and maybe not come to school and don't take advantage of services. But it's not who we are as a country. It's not who we are forgetting our humanity. And as governor, I'm going to stand up for every single resident.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that, about your story coming over here, because there's so many people who have come over here. They come over here legally, and they are upset about people who are not here on. They didn't do it the right way. They're here illegally. They're here. They may be committing crimes. Can you talk about how you draw that line between respecting people like your family who came over here the right way and others who are not following the rules? How do you rectify that for people who are saying we want immigrants to come the right way, but we also need to take care of people who are already here? Schools are being strained, services are being strained. How do you bridge that gap?
But I think the way you framed it is perfect, right? Because it does start with the answer is you respect everybody, but you do have that conversation to say, hey, what does that look like, right? What are we going to talk about with making sure we've got a secure border? What are we going to make sure we have a broader plan for a pathway to citizenship? And all the conversations that should be occurring, right? That's a fair conversation. I understand it. I understand that process that took years and years and years and years to become a citizen.
Right. And that,
personally, right?
Okay.
I remember how stressful it was for my parents. My brother and I were kind of like, what? Like, you better be ready. So I remember it vividly, But so I get it, right? And those conversations are valid, right? We all want to have those. But I think along the way, it is. Let me just say, when I see it personally, right? When I go into a community and I see that there's kids who just aren't showing up for school anymore, right? There are parents who are worried that I just can't let my kid out of my sight because look, I'm saying what I'm saying, hoping to be the next governor. But as a parent, I can tell you that I wouldn't care what anyone's telling me. Like right now, I wouldn't let my kid out of my sight, right? If that was the case. So there's a way we go about it without dehumanizing, right? Let's have those conversations. Let's figure out how we, and there was a plan for that. Remember, a bipartisan plan at the federal level to do something. And this president said, don't do it. I'd rather it be political. That's just not who we should be. You're
saying there's a broader message out there, and it's painting everyone with the same stroke, and people who are coming over the right way and wrong way, they're being painted with that same stroke.
Let me be explicit about this. When they have the raids that are happening right now, we saw it even in this state, and they barge into a room and say, "Show me your papers." Somebody tell me exactly what that means, right? Or when they're deciding, I don't know who's legally, who's illegally here. I don't walk around with some kind of papers that say I'm, legally here or illegally here. I don't know if I look American enough. I don't know if I was here long enough. Like when they come into rooms, and we saw it now, where they round up veterans who served in this country, right? Where they round up others who are, legal immigrants. And how do you make that distinction? Like, it should scare all of us, because when they come for all of us, right? So it's not somebody else, it's us. So let's talk about doing this in a way that honors the conversation that has to happen, honors the processes that we want to make sure are in place. That's fair. Let's talk about having those on-ramps and pathways and make sure those are clear to folks, right? Because those are being eliminated as well. But at the same time, we can't miss the fact that we've seen in history when folks start just coming in and saying, show me your papers, the unintended, and I'll put that in air quotes, I'm not sure how unintended, but the unintended consequences, they're happening right now. It's happened in New Jersey to folks who are citizens of this country who have been rounded up and detained. That should be unacceptable to all of us.
And I can understand what you're saying. I mean, even if you're pulled over for what have you, a police officer, it makes you nervous. You get scared.
Sure
Like, whoa,
right.
what'd I
Yes.
do?
Right.
Where's my stuff? I
Right,
don't
we
know
all
where my
get nervous,
stuff
right?
is.
Yeah, you can't find it. You always can't find the one thing, right?
Let's
be fair. You can't find the one
so
paper.
That's what you're trying to say, that there is a difference, there's a right way and a wrong way to go about it.
Yeah, I'd say, look, let's talk about it. Let's talk about what we're really going to do with comprehensive immigration reform, including a pathway to citizenship, what we want to do on the border. Fair conversation. Let's talk about all of that. Let's talk about the process we're going to lay out. How does someone apply for asylum? How does somebody apply for the visas that are being cut back on? All the things. Let's lay it out there. Folks know it clearly. Let's have those conversations. Let's engage in what we need to make sure everybody feels we debate, discuss, which is what's supposed to happen in government, in a democracy. Let's come up with our laws and pass them and enforce them and move forward. But along the way, it doesn't have to be these scare tactics. It doesn't have to be these tactics that also put all of us at risk. And I think that's what I think we have to talk about as well.
You're talking about affordability, we're talking about immigration, something near and dear to your heart, education.
Yeah.
So much of our taxes, what we pay for at the local level, what we pay for in our taxes at the local level, fund schools. This is something this is your life, your profession, education. What's happening at the national level? The president has said he's going to get rid of the Department of Education. There's too much red tape, and our children are not performing. And the data is showing a lot of our children are failing. I'm pretty sure I know where you're going to stand on this, but where do you stand on this issue? How do you get rid of the certain amount of red tape and things that are getting in the way of educating our children? Because you've been there, you've been boots on the ground as a teacher, and still ensure that there are safety nets in place to ensure that the most vulnerable students, whether special ed or the gifted, that their needs are being met.
Yeah, I think first thing you do, by the way, in any community you want to go, is go listen to the educators. Listen to the educators. Right? They will tell you right away what's working, what's not, what actually is getting to them and how they can use it, or what's not getting to them. Oftentimes, and maybe it's and I see it even running for this position, right? Oftentimes there's that little pat on the head. Thank you so much for what you do as an educator, but go back to your classroom. We don't need to hear your opinion on this. And that happens at the Board of Ed level. It happens at state level. It happens even when you're running for governor, right? But in that, we have to look at it and say, hey, these folks know what's happening, and they know what's working, and they know what they need. So let's listen to them, and let's find out why it is that the thing that's happening at the board level, the program, the dollars, aren't getting to them and the students to help, right? That's the first thing I'd say. Second thing is, the answer is not to just allow someone to take advantage of that genuine frustration to eliminate something that provides supports to so many families and kids. So I'm talking about the elimination of the Department of Education. $1.2 billion, that's how much we get in New Jersey for IDEA, Title I, right, students with special needs. That is a huge amount of money. And listen, I get it. If we all believe him, he's just going to eliminate the department and give each state all the money. Fine. We know how to do that, and we know how to figure that out. And as governor, no problem. We can get the dollars where they need to go. But I also know that Elon Musk is sitting there, right, with those strings attached to the president and making those decisions. And they're looking for money, not to just give to us, our states, to give tax breaks to Elon Musk and billionaires and massive corporations. So I don't think those dollars are just going to come to us, and that should scare every single parent, all of us, but certainly parents of students with special needs, because those dollars are huge in terms of the investment we make in our children's future. So eliminating a whole department in that way is very dangerous, right? And there's also a layer to it of, look, the role of the federal government is to kind of see what's happening in each of the states, take best practices, share those out, make sure that you get supported. So there's a lot more that happens there. You've got a lot of people with expertise. So it provides value, even though we are all frustrated by red tape. We are all frustrated by, we call it paperwork and, wasting our time and certainly making things more complex to navigate. So we've got to make sure we're streamlining, always checking in, having conversations. But you do that most effectively by going to the granular level. Talk to the folks who are engaging. Talk to the parents. Talk to the educators. Listen to them, right? They know what the challenges are. They know what the opportunities for increased efficiencies are, making processes easier. But the answer is never just like broad sell. Just get rid of everything. Don't give the dollars, and use that as an opportunity.
So you're not buying what the president is saying
I
that
am
it is
not.
about. That's what he's saying. That's
No.
what he's trying to say.
I don't buy it.
Let the states do what they want. Let the
No.
teachers do what they want. You're not buying it.
No, I'm not at all. Zero. I think when we're talking about Medicaid, right, and the dollars that they want to pull out of that, when we're talking about the Department of Education and the dollars they're pulling out of that, when they're cutting every single program that so many folks are using in this country or it's USAID, another country, everything is being shut down. Everybody's being fired. All those dollars are being taken, not to all of a sudden give us all way more money in the States so we can do what we want with it. It is going to be to give tax breaks to Elon Musk, other billionaires, and super rich corporations.
I want to talk about another topic before we run out of time, and it's something that affects anybody who has to get to work, get to school, get anywhere, and that is New Jersey Transit, the state of our roadways, roads, tunnels, bridges. And when we had the Democratic primary debate, everybody agreed.
Yeah.
Everybody gave New Jersey Transit some
Yes.
F's.
Yes.
What
Yes.
grade
Yes. I think
did
that
you
was the
give
grade.
it?
I think so. I think it was an F from everybody. Yes.
Yeah. So what solutions do you have to
Yeah.
help the New Jersey Transit? That again, anybody who has to get anywhere, you're affected by this.
Yeah, no question. What do folks want? They want something that's safe. They want something that's reliable, right? They want something that's clean. They want something that's affordable, right? That's what you want. But right now we've got a system that doesn't work because if you're late every time you get on to get to work, that's not working for you, right? If you're can't rely on it, it's not working for you. I would separate a couple things though, right? When we look at our bus system and others, we've got a lot more control in that one. And certainly I think as we make advancements towards the green economy and certainly green infrastructure, as we invest in electrification of our infrastructure in state, there's an opportunity to also improve our fleet and get newer buses and cleaner buses and all the things that we want to make improvements on there. So certainly I think a little bit more manageable and we have much more control there and certainly I'd invest. When you talk about trains, right? A little bit different because now we're reliant on the federal government, right? We're looking at Amtrak, we're looking at regional approaches, conversations with New York and other states. So it becomes much more complex and a different set of dollars, and that makes it harder. As governor, what I would do is obviously continue to advocate with our federal elected officials for more infrastructure dollars. They all talk about it. This president again says maybe he's going to do something about infrastructure. We'll see. But investing those infrastructure dollars there would be huge. But even if we aren't seeing that, it's conversations with New York to say, hey, you keep talking about congestion pricing, and certainly there's components, I understand why, but we need to have the conversations here of how are you helping us with some of those dollars to help improve NJ Transit, because the best way to stop congestion is to provide clean, safe, reliable, affordable mass transportation into the city. Folks don't have to rely on driving in, right? And I'm talking about that nurse trying to get to the hospital, the teacher maybe getting to school, the firefighter getting to the firehouse. So there's folks who need to do that and would rather not be driving and paying these fees. I get it. There's plenty of Wall Street bankers who probably aren't even realize they're paying the fee, but for hardworking regular folks, they do realize it, right? And it is a hit, and they would love to take New Jersey Transit if it was those things I mentioned. So it's also having those conversations regionally to say, how do we invest the dollars there, even if we aren't getting the dollars we need from the federal government. It's also having a clear plan, saying to folks, hey, here's our strategic goal, and here is the timeline we want to hit it. So we can all look at that and say, have we accomplished this piece of it, the next piece, and while we're doing it, here are our contingency plans. So if this train all of a sudden isn't functioning, here is the very clear way it's going to be communicated to you, and here are your alternatives that we're going to have in place so you know those are happening while we continue to make the improvements.
Communication, that is a big deal. As we close out this segment, final thoughts that you would like to tell people watching that separates you from the other candidates, or why they should vote for you at primary, and if you win the primary in the general election.
Yeah, well, definitely I encourage folks to check us out at SeanSpiller.com, right? Got to do the classic mention that, SeanSpiller.com, the website. But listen, this is about what we're talking about. It's every bit about affordability and the things that I mentioned before. It's every bit about having somebody who can stand up to this president. I've done it before, stood up to Chris Christie in this state when we were his #1 target to get things done for folks, but also never to compromise on our values. It's about fighting for every single resident. And I think not only that message matters, the messenger matters. And I say it as somebody who's lived every one of these things. I say it as somebody who struggled to be able to afford that first home. It's personal for me. I say it as somebody with a 7-year-old and 4-year-old and understands those early costs. It's personal for me. I understand it as somebody who right now as mayor saw those environmental impacts year over year over year and the devastation. It's personal to me. As somebody who's going to fight to protect every single resident in this state, as an immigrant coming here myself, it's personal to me. It's every one of the things that I think are important, but they're important to all of us, including me, and that's why I'm going to fight for every single one of us.
Sean Spiller, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Yeah, thanks for having
It's
me. I
been a
really
pleasure.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. My guest right now is Bill Spadea. He is a former New Jersey 101.5 morning talk show host, former Marine entrepreneur, self-proclaimed outsider from Trenton, running for governor in the state of New Jersey on the Republican side. Bill Spadea, welcome. It's good to
Laura,
see you.
great to see you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. You spent more than 10 years as the morning show host on New Jersey 101.5, talking to people of New Jersey, listening to them, and then you decided, you know what, enough is enough of this. I want to run for governor. Tell me a little bit about that journey.
Enough is enough is exactly right. You said it right. For 10 years, I've been listening. And, you know, people in New Jersey will tell you what's on their mind. It's that Jersey edge that we have. There's a certain personality here. But when you hear it progressively getting worse over time, and I think a lot of people really believed in 2021 that we were going to have a Republican governor. I think had we had a different nominee, maybe we would have had a Republican governor. The challenge was that you had a guy that got the nomination after running unsuccessfully 4 years earlier, and he started attacking Donald Trump, didn't address the issues, and you know we kind of saw it going off the rails. By contrast, in Virginia in 2021, Glenn Youngkin got elected governor, and he got elected by more than 70,000 votes. It was not a close election. You know, it's easy to say that maybe 2021 was close here, but when you look at how many thousands and thousands of Republicans just stayed home because they weren't satisfied with the message, they thought, wow, I can have the Democrat or the Democrat light. That was the problem. So for me, I had no intention of getting back into politics. I mean, politics for me was 2 decades ago.
Well, that's the first time you and I met.
That's when you and I met, when I was running for Congress
you running
back
for
in
Congress.
2004.
Yes, right.
So, you know, that was a great experience. I took on a challenge that no Republican wanted to take on. That was the old 12th district with Rush Holt was the congressman. I mean, this was a district overwhelmingly Democratic, and I took it on, and we outperformed expectations. I didn't win, but we went from 20% to 40% on election day in about a 5-week period, just knocking on doors. So my whole career has been listening to people, talking to people, engaging with them in a very real way. I'm not a scripted guy. I'm not a talking point guy. It was a free flow conversation on the radio for 10 years, and to a certain extent chasing news, where we also did work together on our Fox TV show.
Yeah.
That was conversational. So I'm a big believer in having a real, honest conversation. So I started to have that conversation with our listeners 2022 and into 2023, and decided that when I heard that the Republican Party could not come up with a better choice than Jack Ciattarelli, time to run. And now it's a very competitive 2-man race.
Well,
there are other candidates in the race, and I don't mean
John
to.
Bramnick,
I'm not going to knock any
right.
of them because I think John is a good guy. I've known John for a long time. I think way too moderate for a Republican primary, and I think his problem is that he spent too much time attacking Donald Trump. I mean, and I would say the same thing for Jack Ciattarelli. It's a huge problem in a Republican primary when you have a history, years-long history, of attacking the guy that speaks to most Americans right now.
Right. Well, I definitely want to talk about Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And your support of him, how you've been supporting him since day one.
Yeah.
But more, what I want to get back to, you know, you talk about you as somebody at New Jersey 101.5, listening to your listeners. Me as a reporter, every candidate, every issue I've covered when it comes to New Jersey's race for governor, when it comes to Senate Assembly, whatever races, the cost of living, it's too much.
It's too high.
Is that what you're hearing? Can you talk about your issues you're running on?
It's 3 things. It's affordability, number one, and that is both cost of living, but it's also the high cost of government in this state, where you've got our education portion of the taxes are so high, 50 to 70% of your real estate taxes, and it's unaffordable. The average tax is $10,000, and you've got an anchor program which is basically just throwing crumbs to people. I mean, the anchor rebate program averages $700 on a $10,000 tax bill. It's not sustainable. It's why 7 out of 10 moves are out of state. So affordability is a big part of it. But you know, the other side of it is safety, public safety, and there are really 2 sides to public safety as I see it. Number one, the sanctuary state is unsustainable. Now, the sanctuary state that was pushed by Biden and Harris, and the doors were just opened by Phil Murphy, it's not just a public safety issue. It's also an affordability issue. We estimate $7.4 billion a year with the cost of illegal immigrants. And my opponent, Jack Ciattarelli, still supports licenses for illegals, still supports in-state tuition, supported it vocally, and was on the side of voting to make sure that taxpayer dollars were there to subsidize higher education for people who are not here legally. So all those things feed into it. So it's public safety, it's affordability. But then there's something about government efficiency. One of the things I really learned, especially through COVID, that when people were waiting for their unemployment checks and they couldn't get somebody on the phone and it would be months of delays. I mean, these are folks that are living week to week and you're counting on that check, whether you are a seasonal worker, whether you're in construction, whether you were shut down during COVID, and the delays and can't get someone on the phone, can't get a check out of government. So we're going to implement New Jersey Doge.
Wow.
And I said this funny story. I know I love this format that we can actually have a conversation.
Yeah.
So I'm at the New Jersey Chamber of Commerce, the walk to Washington, get invited, and all the Democrats and Republicans are on stage. And I believe I am the only candidate for New Jersey governor to have ever been booed at a New Jersey Chamber event.
Wait.
I got booed.
You got booed at the chamber train.
Because they went through the what are you going to do on your first day? Well, my first day is going to be busy. And they go through all the candidates and they all have some idea or another. I said, first thing I'm going to do is call Elon Musk and implement NJ Doge.
Wow.
And they booed. But the reason is it wasn't all business owners. There are a lot of lobbyists and connected consulting firms and lawyers. And Laura, that's the challenge in New Jersey, that you've got this professional political class that makes money and benefits on the backs of working class New Jerseyans. One thing that I have said from day one, and I've been talking about this now for 10 years in broadcast, is reinstating the cost of living adjustment for our police and firefighters. It was taken away, in 2011 between that deal with Christie and Sweeney, and it's not right. And I say this. We've looked at the numbers. I've talked to the FMBA, I've talked to the PBA, the FOP. It's about $65 to $85 million a year to reinstate that. Now, out of a $58 billion budget, how our state government has not been able to put aside $60, $70 million to keep our cops and firefighters whole in retirement is beyond me, because it's an investment in keeping them here.
Right.
We want people to stay here.
That's the issue. We spend so much on education.
Yeah.
And we have some of the best public schools, yet we have some of the worst public schools that people are failing.
Yeah.
When you talk about New Jersey Doge, and we look at what Donald Trump is doing on the national level, Department of Education, abolishing that, can you talk a little bit about that and your plans? Because so much of our property taxes, it goes to education, because you have, every town has its own school districts. There are towns, whether they're school districts, and there are no students.
Consolidation is certainly a part of it, I think. I also believe that school choice, that the money should follow the child.
It is
That
so difficult.
is critical.
Why is this so difficult?
Because the NJEA is too powerful. And the New Jersey Teachers Union is so powerful. And I've said this, I'm a pro-union Republican. I'm also in favor of the companies that don't have unions. I think we have enough competition and enough opportunity in this state for union and non-union to get to work. But when I look at a union, the FOP, the PBA, you're looking at a union, the PSA for the firefighter, the PFA, all these different groups out there. They represent their guys. They advocate for their guys. I had a conversation actually on the drive here with a corrections officer who was suspended for more than a year for refusing the COVID vax. And she said, I was reinstated soon after, but part of it was because my union fought for me. The NJEA does not fight for the teachers. Where was the NJEA when our teachers were either forced to vaccinate or be tested twice weekly? Something that my opponent, Jack Ciattarelli, supported. He supported them being forced to vaccinate or test twice a week. Unconscionable. We should not have any mandate like that. But the NJEA doesn't stand up for their guys. And when you look at the money, follow the money. Why has nothing been done? Because you've got Republicans and Democrats. You've got the Senate leader on the Republican side taking a big fat check from the NJEA every campaign cycle. How can you negotiate in good faith to bring our costs down? What are we going to do about it? Number one, we're going to open the door to charter schools. This is something that will bring our costs down. If you look at the average charter school across the state, they are educating a child for 2/3 the cost. In many cases, private schools are doing it for 1/3 of the cost.
And the
School
thing about
choice.
well, the thing about charter schools is a lot of them are in urban areas and they're specific for very disadvantaged individuals. I have special ed kids,
Yes.
And the choices they are very limited. So
Your money should follow your children. And why, as a mom of special needs kids, why do you not have accessibility with your tax dollars to a charter school?
And this is what I find
should.
very frustrating. I kind of know how to navigate my way around. If I have a hard time navigating my way around, I can't imagine what other families are, trying to understand those layers of bureaucratic red tape that they have to get through. And I think that this brings me to my next point is during COVID, being in the depths of fighting and advocating for my kids, I kind of knew what was going on in the education system. But for a lot of parents, because they had virtual classes, they started to see what is or is not going on in the classroom. And no matter what side of the aisle you're on, a lot of parents were saying, wait a minute, what are you teaching? What my child isn't doing well, and
That's
a lot
right.
of them were vilified. And you made they were labeled unfairly just because they were saying, well, wait, I just want my kid to learn, and something is a disconnect. I think COVID changed a lot of things. A lot of people's eyes were opened. Did anything click with you during that time, and what have you seen, heard? Because there's a big divide. A lot of people
Huge
think
divide.
if you speak out, well, then that must mean you're anti-trans, you're anti-LGBTQ, you're anti this, that, the other, which isn't always the case.
Well, it's been politicized, so there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, the first is that I go back in this parental rights movement to 2019, when the idea of removing the religious exemption for vaccines was first discussed, and then it was voted on it. And I worked very closely with the thousands of moms who would protest at the State House, and thankfully we were able to hold on to that religious exemption. But that was a very important and critical time, and a lot of Republicans were on the wrong side of that issue. And that was an eye-opener for me when I realized, well, Republicans won't all stand up for parental rights. Certainly my opponent does not stand up for parental rights at any level. Now, he claims he does, but it's easy to say it. But you got to look back to what people have done as a way of showing what they actually will do once they get into office. But we saw that in 2019. We saw it in 2020. Then in 2022, I was very aggressive with our Common Sense Club and Elect Common Sense, our PAC that supports local races. After we got through that startup period and got it rolling, we were able to help hundreds of candidates across the board in Board of Election campaigns, in council races, mayoral races. The driving theme: parents want their rights back. Parents want to be able to decide what goes into their kid's body. I mean, this is a very basic thing. I have made a public commitment that I want to get rid of the flu shot mandates. The flu shot is an absurdity as a mandate anywhere. No nurse or public health official should have to take a shot that has an 18% efficacy rate. And not to mention, now we're hearing a lot from scientists, especially with the incoming, with the Trump administration and RFK and what he's talking about, that it's possible the very flu shot designed to keep you from getting the flu compromises you on 3-4 other diseases that are out there, viruses that are out there. So I think we need, I know we need to bring back common sense, and we also need to elevate mom and dad. Because when you are, let's talk about, you mentioned the alphabet soup, right? I look at it this way: there's LGB, and then we draw a line and there's mental illness. And when you think about a kid who is confused, maybe there's a child that has gender dysphoria. This is a real thing. This is a mental issue, though.
Right. You
that
don't
needs
want to
be
take
dealt
away
with.
services that help.
Well, you got to help these kids, but you have to help them in a positive way. I mean, why is gender affirming care the opposite? The gender affirmation is, the kid feels like they're born in the wrong body, therefore we're going to go through puberty blockers and push them into surgeries. It's disgraceful the way we're treating these children. Most of these kids are just having issues at school. They need mom and dad. 5756, that policy from our Department of Ed that said a teacher cannot tell mom and dad if a kid is having a gender crisis is an abomination. This is a horror show. Most of these children, if they had caring support, will be just fine. And that's what we have to work toward. But you got to empower the parents first.
And one of the issues is healthcare. These are healthcare issues. These are not necessarily political issues.
Right.
If you win the Republican primary and you go on to compete against Democrat in November, there are a lot of people who, you say Trump is divisive. People are loving him right now or hating him. How do you bridge that gap? Because there are so many, this state.
Yeah.
Is it blue? Is it purple? What is it? How well Trump did this last time around? How do you reach those other voters who might think, okay, Bill Spadea is way too MAGA, way too red?
It's actually very funny because I have been attacked for being both. My opponents decided first they were going to attack me. He's too MAGA. He's too Trump. Now they're trying to say, well, he's not Trump enough, because out of 15,000 hours, they found 20 seconds where I criticized the president. And what's funny is I brought that up to the president, because I've had him on the show a couple times, and we were backstage with him in Wildwood. And President Trump actually agreed with me, because what I had said was, in a next term, are you going to root out the deep state? And we talked about the failing of not firing Fauci and Birx and all these people that betrayed President Trump. And he had a great view of this. This is a man who understands his role in the world and in history, and understood that he was taken advantage of and lied to in that first term. And we see it in the first month and a half. He is not going to be taken advantage of this time. So I would argue that most people right now in America are very happy with what the Trump administration is doing. But to me, it's not about polling. It is about what is Trump doing that is appealing to the people of New Jersey. What do we need? So NJ Doge is number one. Ending the sanctuary for illegal criminal aliens is number two. Getting people back to work. I'll give you an example. Thankfully, because of Congressman Jeff Van Drew and Donald Trump, we're done with this wind farm off the coast nonsense. Now, they're going to keep rearing their ugly head, and we're going to have to keep smacking them down. But our energy plan is very simple. We are going to revitalize and reinvigorate natural gas and nuclear in New Jersey. There's an opportunity for cogen technology that every town could cut down on the transfer cost, which will directly lower your utility bills by having a cogen power generation plant right in your town. Why? They're the size of a car. Doesn't take up a lot of space, and the byproduct is steam. So we have to think critically. We need to bring back things like, I want to open up the family farms. Our family farms are struggling in this state. I would like to see a time where, and I'm going to do it to the extent I can do it through executive orders, legalize raw milk. Suspend some of the commercial washing procedures when it comes to a small family farm. Why can't the small farmer sell locally to people directly their eggs?
This is the Garden State.
It's the Garden State.
It's the Garden State.
You've got a 10-acre farm. I would like to revisit the homestead exemptions as well, meaning a farm assessment right now they're trying to raise it to $4,000 from $1,500. You talk to any farmer on a 20-acre farm or less, and they'll say, you're baling hay, you're not going to make $4,000. So this is a bill, and sadly, a lot of Republicans have been duped into supporting this, that they will eliminate family farms in the state. We're going to do the opposite. I want to open up some of that open space to family farms. I want to go to that family farmer on 10 acres and say, if you and your kids are homeschooled and you are managing the farm without employees, it's you. Your home should qualify for the farm assessment. So we've got to think practically. But back to Donald Trump, it really is about public safety and enforcing federal detainer orders, making sure that we are using our county lockups to provide space for these federal detainees so that we can build a federal government and get cash flowing. I'm going to cooperate 100% with Tom Homan, and people want that. Remember, Laura, it doesn't always poll. You think about Trump's poll numbers. If we listen to the polling, Trump didn't win any of those races.
Yeah.
So.
Final thoughts here.
Yeah.
You've touched on so many issues, and there's some we weren't able to get to. But if you were able to talk to the voters, what separates you? What do you want the voters? Top three things you want them to know about Bill Spadea.
What the voters need to know, I served in the Marine Corps. I'm an entrepreneur. I've started businesses. I worked in the corporate world managing millions of dollars and thousands of people over my career. And I have been listening. And I do understand that we have to get a governor in office who understands the most important three buckets of where we need policy changes. Number one is in affordability, and we're going to do that with our tax plan that's going to eliminate senior taxes for education starting at age 55, zeroing it out by the time they get to 70. How are we going to do that? We're going to bring in charter schools. We're going to bring in school choice. Money follows the kid, and we're going to lower those costs. So that's on the affordability issue. On the issue of public safety, we absolutely have to start enforcing the law. We've got to cooperate fully with the federal government and make sure that we are ending the sanctuary state in New Jersey. I'm going to end the 2018 sanctuary state, the 2019 Immigrant Trust Directive, and start enforcing federal detainer orders on day one. I'm also going to declare a state of emergency so that we can suspend bail reform. But with public safety comes the duty of government to take care of our police officers, both active and retired. We're going to restore the cost of living adjustment that was taken away from them. It was outrageous. And it's doable and affordable. And then the third bucket is government efficiency. You ought to get somebody on the phone when you've got a license to renew. We're going to take a page actually out of some of the Democrats around the country that have streamlined the process of approvals. And what that's going to do is, believe it or not, it's going to allow us to lower insurance costs. We got to lower insurance costs. We got to lower energy costs. Part of that is implementing New Jersey DOGE, and we're going to do that on day one. We're going to get this government under control. You've been listening to me for the past 10, 12 years, really, if you include the TV show. I've always been honest. I've always operated without a script, and you don't have to just take my word for what I will do. You can go back in the history of what I've said needs to be done. I've never shied away from a fight. I've got the courage and the strength and the ability to lead this state, and I will be eagerly looking for voters, and I will go directly to the voters to ask them for support.
Bill Spadea,
Thanks,
Republican
Laura.
candidate for governor. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Thanks.
Thank you.